Good morning. Welcome to the Mayor's Breakfast. I'm Jeff Simmons, pastor here at Rolling Hills Community Church, and what a joy to be together this morning. What a great group. Hey, I hope you've had a wonderful summer. Many of you guys, you look tan, so maybe you've been at the beach. That's awesome, so I love that. It's been a great summer around here. We've had a great summer of ministry. I was in Moldova working with orphans there. You know what I love? I love seeing our community use our gifts to make a difference around the world. So thank you for serving, thank you for giving, thank you for all you do here in Franklin just to make a difference globally. So it's exciting to see what God's doing. Also, 2 weeks left and school starts. Many teachers return next week, so let's be praying for our teachers. Let's be praying for our school administrators. A lot of great things happening here in Franklin. Love that as a community we get to be a part of something way bigger than ourselves. We get to be a part of something that makes a difference. So Shauna, Tim, come on up. We're going to get started this morning. Got a great program, excited about today, and welcome everybody.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Again, I'm Shauna Jackson, and
Tim Murphy.
Elizabeth's missing today, so Tim is filling in to help us get this event started. Thank you all so much for being here. I first want to thank our presenting sponsor, Pinnacle Financial Partners, and I've seen a few members. Vicki, Linda, or if anyone from Pinnacle is here, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you so much. I also want to thank our partners, Williamson Medical Center, Tennessee Equine Hospital, Williamson County Association of Realtors, Andrews Cadillac, and our newest partner, Patterson, Hardy, and Ballantyne Public Accountants. Help me thank them as well.
And last but certainly not least, we want to thank Puckett's Restaurant and Grocery and Royal Cup Coffee for our breakfast this morning. Let's give them a hand. And I want to also congratulate Shauna and all the folks at Columbia State on the opening since our last meeting here. The campus is opened, and if you guys have not been out there, you need to go see it. It's a beautiful campus, but congratulations.
Thank you, Tim. And I think I've seen many of you celebrated with us during our grand opening. And because this topic is about not just business, but education, I would like to take this time to invite our president, Dr. Janet Smith, to the stage to share a little information with you.
Thank you, Shauna. Always glad to be able to talk about Columbia State and Williamson County. You know, May 9, we started that transition from the Yates Center to the new Williamson campus. I think it was around May 31, first students came to the new campus and started classes. And many of you were there, hundreds were there on the 22nd as we opened the doors. And began a new era in Columbia State Williamson campus and what's going on in Williamson County. That new campus allows students to obtain their associate's degree in the sciences or in the arts and humanities and transfer to the college of their choice to complete their bachelor's. That new facility has instructional resources that allow technical programs such as our nursing, film crew, commercial entertainment, business, accounting, and all of those to have experiences they would never have to prepare for the jobs of tomorrow. Since that campus has come into being, businesses have met with Shauna, and together they've worked with the city in developing a hospitality certificate to meet the needs of the community and the businesses that are here. We've had representatives from the healthcare community come in and say we need an anesthesia technology program. That program's now at the Tennessee Board of Regents asking for approval to implement that. We look for maybe next fall we'll have that part started as well. We have hired L.K. Browning has joined us, and she's in the audience here. I hope you have an opportunity to meet her, to begin to improve and add to our workforce development programs so that we're working with business and industries to provide the training that they need and not only with them, but with you for personal and professional development courses. So we are looking to work with our community, and to do that, we need to know more of what you want. What do you need? What are your dreams? What are your desires? What courses? What programs? So Franklin Tamara, Williamson County, City of Franklin have joined with us to do an interest survey. That survey will come out very soon. It's all together, so you'll be receiving a link, and we hope you will go to that link and you will complete it. If you have children or know of people who are not going to college, it's for them to tell us what they need, what kind of programs, what kind of courses. If you have a college degree, it's for you, because we want to know too what you want. What are your interests? Do you want enrichment classes, workshops, seminars, an evening out to learn about a topic, whether it be in history or cake baking or whatever? We want to know what you're interested in. If you own a business, we want to know if there are training needs that you have, and are there ways we can collaborate with you to provide those training needs. We are your community college. This is your community college, and we want to provide what you need for your enrichment, for your development, for the economy, for the continued growth. We are definitely a partner. So please take time, encourage others when you receive the link, and complete the survey so that we can continue to identify your needs and meet those needs. We thank you for all the support you've given Columbia State. It is your college. Please come visit often and see the many great things that's going on there. Thank you all. Thank you for what you do every day.
Thank you, President Smith. Now it's time to begin our program. So, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our County Mayor, Rogers Anderson, and our vacationing Mayor Moore brought the most awesome fill-in for him. Please welcome Vice Mayor Brandy Blanton to the stage.
You want me to go first? Okay, I'm sitting. Are you standing? Okay. Look, put a girl in charge. Roger, sit right there. Wow, okay, y'all be very afraid. I am somebody who pretty much shoots from the hip, if you know me, so I do have notes. I will look at those shortly, but I'm very, very happy to be here. I do serve on the board of Franklin tomorrow, and it was kind of a joke at the last board meeting that this might happen, and here we are. So, as Shauna said, Ken and Linda are on safari in Africa, so here I am instead, and we do want to make sure that they come home safely. They are traveling this week, so you guys send out good vibes and thoughts for them and prayers that they make it home safely. Here we go. Note number one. We do all know we are in the midst of some difficult times in our country. We've got a very heated presidential election, shootings that we can't explain, and also terrorist attacks here, both in the United States and on other soils. And last week on Thursday, I got to be a part of I guess we call it a panel discussion. It was a conversation at the First Missionary Baptist Church, and it was on race relations. And it was standing room only, which was very cool. Lots of different churches were represented, different races, and the panel, and I go from left to right, was Eric Stuckey, Alderman Pearl Bransford, Jeff Long, Deb Faulkner, Wayne McCullough, who's with Limestone Missionary Baptist Church, and Mike Dobbins, who runs our jail. And there was also a student from MTSU. And there were many topics brought up and questions, and it was great to see us make a concerted effort to try to keep the conversation going so that people feel like we are aware of what's going on and that we're ahead of it as well. And the city is definitely looking at that. It was also so wonderful to see Jeff Long and Deb Faulkner volley back and forth in a way of friendship. And that means the world to me, because these two people are who take care of us in our public safety, alongside, of course, our fire department and our rescue squad. So I want you guys to know that we are in very good hands, and they are definitely keeping an eye on what's going on. So also in kind of continuance of that, the Franklin Police Department, along with some of our local churches, are doing a back-to-school event this Saturday. I think it's on Short Court, which is off of Natchez, and that is something that I'd love to see everybody come to. They're going to be passing out backpacks, feeding the children. They're also going to give away some bikes. And Deb Faulkner also mentioned if you have a bike that needs repairing, bring it, and they'll take care of that too. So lots of great things going on in the city that we have an opportunity to show up and show that we care. So I would encourage you all to be there. That's this Saturday, 11 to 1 at Short Chapel. Okay, business. This is the business part. So we just passed the budget. And part of that also comes with Standard & Poor's rating, which we just got re-upped on, both the Moody's and the Standard & Poor's. And one of the things that, and I'm going to quote this because it's really important, and I hope Miss Ann's here because I saw this and I thought about her. There is a quote, look, I got to find my card, Rogers, from them, from Standard & Poor's, that said, the credit position for Franklin is outstanding, and its AAA rating far surpassed the U.S. city median of AAA. The rating reflects a wealthy socioeconomic profile, an ample tax base, and a very healthy financial position. It also takes into account a small debt burden and a manageable pension liability. So we continue as a city to, the projects are going up, the price tags are going up, but we're still managing our finances well, and I'm very proud of that. So, very good. A very recent hire, which is very important to the city, especially for all my development friends I saw here this morning. Emily Hunter has been named our new Director of Planning and Sustainability. She's worked with us for 9 years, so she kind of knows the lay of the land for sure, but she was picked out of a candidate pool of 45 people, both across the country and internally. So that's a great, great step for us. We do have to say goodbye to sweet Bob Martin. Bob was with the city for many years and retired in 2006, but came back in May, and he's been with us for a year in May, so we will miss him. He got those planning people, they were all little ducks in a row, and it's been interesting to see the changes there. So if you've attended a BOMA meeting, you'll know what I mean. Some other things going on with the city because of the budget, and something we do almost, seems like every year, it's supposed to be every 3 years, is our capital improvement project list. And what that means, it's all the things we need as a city. I think it was $370 million, is that right, Eric? Worth of that, and the staff's been working for 6 months to give us a star rating so that the BOMA, the Board of Mayor and Alderman, pick. And so we were challenged, this was kind of fun, we had to have our list in by the 12th, so we were supposed to spend $30 million, $70 million, and then top out at 100. And I'm proud to say I got 27 projects in. I got $100,090,000, so I just went over budget a little bit, so that was really good. But also, too, it's exciting times. I know Rogers mentioned in his State of the County, which you did a great job last week, we've got lots of business coming to our community, both new business as well as businesses that are expanding. I think the southeast part of Franklin's going to be a lot different in about 10 years. As Lee Company makes their headquarters there, and Dave Ramsey, Tennessee Baptist Convention, and it's a big driver, and jobs are a really important thing to this community. So I think it's very appropriate that we have Commissioner Boyd here today, and I'm going to pass the mic, or you have your own mic, to Rogers, but I appreciate you guys being here. This is a great opportunity for us to come together as a community and make new friends. I've seen lots of new faces this morning, which is very encouraging, but kind of say I like all my old friends too. So thank you all for being here.
Let Brandy do a great job. I was a fill-in, and we thank you for your public service and what you mean to all of us here in Williamson County. So I thought I'd give you a little snapshot of the county as a whole, and then I would like to introduce Commissioner Boyd. Many of you did attend the State of the County last week, so you probably have heard some of these speeches. But before some of the numbers, but before I talk about those. If you're an elected official, and I know we've got 2 state reps here, Charles Sargent and Glenn Cassidy. I saw some county commissioners and city aldermen are here. So if you're here, would you stand up so that we can acknowledge you, please? Thank you. Thank you for your service. So last week we were talking about the growth here in our county, and certainly city, and we have 6 cities, Brentwood and Franklin, and last Sunday afternoon I had the opportunity to go over to Nolensville, one of the fastest growing cities in the state of Tennessee, and we opened not 1, not 2, but 3 new schools, a high school and a middle school and an elementary school. Dr. Looney and the school board are informing me that for this coming year, we are expecting 1,800 new children coming into our system. Once again, a phenomenal amount of growth that we continue to experience here. And that's in part due to a lot of the businesses here, because government doesn't create those jobs. We do provide the environment. We're kind of a conduit. So I thank you as a prior business owner. Thank you for what you mean to our community. I was talking to a gentleman on the way in this morning, talking about there's no inventory of homes to sell. There's about a 60 to 70 day supply of those homes. And once again, that's a good problem, but it's a bad problem. Education continues to be on the forefront. You heard Dr. Smith talk about Columbia State. We have got all the schools opened except one that we are building, and that's down in the Thompson Station, Spring Hill area. They are looking at other sites in the Brentwood area, which is very challenging for us to find some additional land in the Brentwood area, and they are looking at some of the other areas also for another elementary school. That being said, in the Middle Tennessee area, which most of you would understand the term, the 9-county area, the MSA we refer to, 72% of the growth that is occurring across the state of Tennessee is occurring in the Middle Tennessee area. Think about that a minute. About 26% of that from Crossville and up to the upper East Tennessee area. And then from the Tennessee River, they got about 2% of the growth. So it's occurring here, and it's occurring here for a reason. The quality of life that we have come to expect and enjoy is challenging from a transportation issue. I think we're led by an excellent governor in Bill Haslam. He gets it. He's been in the political arena. He understands dollars and cents. I personally think he's done a great job, and his predecessor on the other side of the aisle. But Phil Bredesen did a wonderful job for our county as he helped to set the stage and develop some of the things that we've got here too. So when you see these men and women, we've got the ex-commissioner of tourism here today that lives here in our community, that was very, very instrumental in the things that we do. We've got a very active city. Charles and Glenn both are probably one of the few state representatives in the entire state of Tennessee that have got 2 cities and a full county that's all AAA bond rated. That's important to keep your financial strength when you go to borrow money. So with that, unless you've got something else to say, let me introduce. I was over reading my notes on Commissioner Boyd, and he said, you don't have to read all that. And I wasn't going to anyway. Commissioner Boyd comes from the Knoxville area. Many of you know him as a business owner. Many of you may have his product at your house that you may not be familiar with, those invincible fences that keep our 4-legged loved animals in. He was involved in that. There's 2 or 3 things, though, I would like to say about him that although I've just got to know him in the last couple of years, I've followed the success of what he has brought to this state through his business expertise. He's the owner of some minor league baseball teams. One of them is affiliated with the Chicago Cubs. So you Cubby fans, which I am, maybe we'll get an opportunity to actually make it to the World Series. I'd say you better shake his hand. That'll be the only way you'll get a ticket. But his involvement in education, he's a graduate of the University of Tennessee. He has 2 children, 2 dogs, 1 wife. He's engaged at the Big Orange level. It's great to see, but his involvement with our children, helping to set up mentoring programs that started in the Knoxville area, along with his friend, Bill Haslam, to take our children and provide a way for those boys and girls that do not have the opportunity that many of us have had, and develop a program and push that program across East Tennessee and eventually come down to the Middle Tennessee area and do it on a statewide basis. Tennessee achieves. That's important, the future generation. Number 2, he's a businessman. He gets it. He understands the values in dollars and cents. He understands what the 15th of the month means other than just being the middle of the month. He understands hiring good quality people, training those people, paying those people, and he's doing that same thing across our state. It is my pleasure. On behalf of Brandy and all of us here in this county, we welcome you to our county. Thanks for what you're doing. Good luck in the future.
Thank you, Rogers. I appreciate that. So thank you, Rogers. So I was just thinking on the bio that he had to read, the only thing that I wish nobody would read anymore is that last sentence, because the only part of the bio that I wrote was the part where it says that he has 2 dogs, 2 cats, and 1 wife. And I wrote it because I thought it would be funny. My wife heard it about a couple of months ago. She did not think it was very funny. So you picked the one thing that I always try to want to edit out. But anyways, but thank you for that introduction. So it's great to be here with you guys today. I get it. So when I come to Franklin, with my wife and I, when she's in town, when we have a little bit of time off, we come to Franklin. It's such an amazing town. It's inspiring. We have a couple little buildings in what we call the Old City in downtown Knoxville that we're trying to fix up. And Franklin is kind of a model of what we wish that part of Knoxville could be like. I mean, it's just you've done such an incredible job with this community, and it's inspirational. But I guess I get it. So I'm thinking, how does Franklin do this? I mean, what is it that makes this happen? Was it planning? Was it the mayors? I'm sure it was the mayors. But what I see now is when I was invited to come to here today, and I was thinking, well, it's a mayor's breakfast, so there'll be like 10 or 20 people, probably, the usual list of suspects, a few people from the chamber. And I come and there's 200 people. I'm told that you average 300 or so. I guess because I'm here, it's a little less. But you have such a great turnout for such a small town. This is incredible. It's the kind of community involvement that makes a city like this happen. So I get to travel around the state a lot, and I'm going to share this story with all these other communities. Today I'll be in Crockett County, Carroll County, Jackson, Tennessee, and back over to Blount County. So traveling around a bit, but I can promise you when I'm traveling the state, I'll be talking about Franklin. So if you want to be like Franklin, you need to have the engagement of Franklin. So anyways, just want to share with you that this has been a very inspirational morning already today. And I appreciate all that you guys are doing to make Tennessee a better place and Franklin a better place. So first off, I want to start off by thanking my bosses. I have a lot of bosses, 6.6 million Tennesseans. Also a governor, which I also think is doing a great job. It'd be probably a career-limiting move if I said anything else, but he is doing a great job. But most importantly, some of my legislators that are here that actually write the checks and support everything I do. Glenn Cassidy is here. Chairman Sargent is here. These guys make my job easy. And I know Matt Largent's one of my partners in recruiting businesses here, so I hope this doesn't hurt you in any way by saying that our job is actually pretty easy in recruiting businesses to Tennessee. And the reason why it is, people ask me, well, is it hard selling the state of Tennessee? And I always remind them, remember what I do for a living for the last 25 years. For a living, I sell an invisible fence. So if you can sell an invisible fence, you can sell the state of Tennessee. But here's why. So we have the lowest, and when we're sort of our little elevator pitch when we've got like 2 minutes to talk to a potential prospect. So we have the lowest debt per capita of any state in the country. We have the best balance sheet of any state in the country. And why that's important, as a business person, I know, I want to do business with another business that can back up their promises. And no other state in the country can back up their promises like the state of Tennessee. So when the governor makes a promise or I make a promise, they know that what we say we'll be able to stand behind. So I think that's really, really important. The other thing, and we've touched on education, I think I want to stress how important that is. So when we're talking to businesses, actually, when I took this job, I was a little nervous. So spent a lot of time in education, but in the philanthropic side, a lot of time growing a business. But when it came to building stuff, building the plants and the offices, I always had somebody else do that. I'm just not really handy at construction. And so I felt like, in this job, it was going to be the one area that I was really going to have to learn and grow a lot, because people are going to want to talk about grading and electricity and all the stuff it takes to build buildings. And it turns out that's never really the case. When you're sitting in front of a prospect, they've already narrowed it down to 2 or 3 sites. And turns out Alabama has dirt, Alabama has electricity. Actually, I said that once, and somebody from TVA was in the room, said, well, our electricity is better. So maybe we do have a little better electricity, but basically those basic building blocks are the same. The differentiator between one state and the other, between one community and the other, always comes down to the talent pipeline. The number one thing companies want to talk to us about is where they're going to get their workers today, where they're going to get the workers tomorrow, where they're going to get the workers 5 years from now. And because of the programs like Tennessee Promise that, again, our legislators, Charles Sargent, Glenn Cassida, passed 2 years ago, that program allows us to be able to promise them the best talent pipeline in the country. We can tell them that as long as you tell us what kind of skills you need, we can recruit the students and train them free of charge, and not only do that now, but be able to do that in perpetuity. Because the way Tennessee Promise was funded, we were able, with no taxpayer cost, move money out of the lottery into an endowment. And so now we've got an endowment that will guarantee that kids will be able to go to a community college across the state in all 95 counties, free of charge, forever. And no other state can do that. So thank you. Thank you, Charles Sargent. Thank you, Glenn Cassida. So I want to give you a little update on how things are going in economic development across the state of Tennessee. We just had our governor's conference this past year. We called it Team Tennessee. That was the theme. And this year will be Team Tennessee 2.0. So Matt, when you come back, don't expect a new theme. I think the team concept is still critical. And why it's critical, the only way we can get anything done in our state is by working together. We're not the richest state in the country, but when we pull together local community leaders, people like Matt, our mayors, people at the state level, our businesses, we can get a lot of great things done. And we've gotten a lot of great things done. And in fact, I've been saying recently that this is the greatest time in the state of Tennessee's history. I think we still stick to that. I know when we read the papers every morning and there's all kinds of crime and mayhem going on around the world, it kind of feels hard to be able to say that. But the fact is, it's true. When you look at every key economic indicator in our state, this is the best time in the history of the state of Tennessee. So here's a few stats in case you want to challenge that. So first off, there's more Tennesseans than there ever been in our state's history. For me, as a Tennessean, 7th generation Tennessean, I think that's a good thing. More Tennesseans is always a good thing. But more importantly, we have more Tennesseans working today than we've ever had in our state's history. We have the highest post-secondary attainment level in our state's history. More people have some type of certificate or degree than ever before. And as you would expect, if you have the most educated population that you've ever had, you're going to have higher incomes. And in fact, the last 2 years in a row, we've set new records for average household income. So we're doing better. We're making more money than we've ever had. Then if you add all that up, as you would expect, we would have the highest GDP that we've ever had. In the last 2 years in a row, we've also set new records for GDP at the state. So at the state level, we're doing great. But if that was all it was and we had hit the pinnacle, then it wouldn't be all that exciting. But the more exciting thing, I think, is the future trajectory. We could talk about a lot of things, but maybe just single in on 2. So 2 things that I think that indicate that we've got even better times ahead. One, if you look at our education, I think the best leading indicator for future economic success is educational attainment. And some of the things that we've got that we can point to, I think, give us a lot of room for a lot of optimism. So I was traveling to Kentucky about 4 or 5 months ago. We were going to visit some community colleges there. They were doing some really interesting things around entrepreneurship, and we can learn from people even in Kentucky. So we went to this community college and we're learning about what they were doing. Anybody from Kentucky here? I hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings, but anyway, actually I'm going to pick on Kentucky again later, but that'll be okay. But they were doing some really interesting things, but at the end of the meeting, the college president shared with me that it was also a really difficult time. Enrollment was down 8% at her college, and the state government had actually cut their budget by 5% this year, and they were going to cut it another 5% the following year. So they were having some really challenging times. So I did a little research, and it turned out nationally, community college going rates, or actually, I'm sorry, public college going rates last year dropped 1.7%. So across the nation, fewer people were going to college. Because of our program, the Tennessee Promise, and some of the other initiatives we've done, last year in the state of Tennessee, while the nation was dropping 1.7%, in the state of Tennessee, new first-time, full-time freshmen entering community colleges jumped 24%. At our technical schools, it jumped 20%, and overall, all public universities and colleges, it jumped 10%. So if future college or education and college attainment and certificate attainment is an indicator of future success, we can be pretty excited about the success we're going to have in the future. Then in the more short term, we have in my department, we have a little pipeline that we manage, a CRM, customer relationship management system. Basically, we're keeping track of all the prospects that we're talking to. And by the way, we close on about 77% of them. So if we're talking to them, 77% of the ones we talk to actually end up landing in the state of Tennessee. It's a pretty good close rate. Well, when I started this job in January of 2015, we had 25,000 prospects in our pipeline. And note that the year before, we had just set a new record, 24,437 new jobs. I knew that number because I had to repeat it all the time because it was a number we're trying to break, 24,437. Anyway, we started the pipeline with 25,000 jobs. This past year, we ended up setting a new record of 25,837 new jobs, so a new record. But the more exciting part is the pipeline has gone in the last 18 months from 25,000 to today. I checked this past Monday. Today's pipeline, we're at 53,000 jobs in our pipeline, over twice as much. Thank you. So, if our team can continue the great record they have with Matt's help and the rest of the team's help, I'm confident that we can be pretty optimistic about some really great results in the coming couple of years. Well, so how are we doing as far as the department's concerned? And I want to make sure that I keep this kind of short so that we can have some time for question and answers. But I know not everybody, and I know even coming into this job, I didn't really know all that what we say ECD does. So I want to share with you a few things about what we do and some of the successes and some of the things that are new. So one of the things we do is recruiting new businesses. Last year, as I mentioned, we set a new record, 25,837 jobs. We set a new record also for capital investment, $5.5 billion invested in our state last year. We also set a new record for return on investment. We actually measure the return on the money that we are investing in these companies. And by the way, when we invest in companies, we're investing in job training and in building public infrastructure. So the money that we're investing in these companies isn't for them to pay out dividends. It's for them to train Tennesseans and to put money in the ground in Tennessee. So I feel like it's a good investment just from that respect. But we also measure the number of jobs that we're going to be recruiting to our state, and then based on the new capital investment and then the sales tax dollars that we're going to get from the new employees that come, what the money comes back to the state is. So if we were just, I know Chairman Sargent really appreciates this, being a great fiscal steward, but when we're measuring the return on investment purely the financial aspect back to the Treasury of the state, last year, from the money we got to the money we will get back, our return on investment last year was 40.3%. I don't know how you guys did with your 401k, but 40.3% is a heck of a lot better than I did. And so if we were just investing the state's money, I think it's a pretty good investment. But the more important part, of course, is 25,837 families now have better jobs and can provide for their family because of that. So, but the investment is important and good. We're doing some new things this year. We're opening up more foreign direct investment offices. We've been doing a great job of bringing businesses from Japan. We've got 184 businesses from Japan. About 53,000 Tennesseans worked with companies that came from Japan. We have an office in Japan, so it makes sense. You have an office, you have boots on the ground, you're going to do good recruiting businesses from that country. Unfortunately, that's the only country in the country, or only country in the world that we actually had offices. Turns out our competitors like Georgia, they have offices in 10 countries around the world. For example, they had an office in Korea. We didn't have an office in Korea. In the last 10 years, the last 15 years, they managed to recruit 56 new businesses from Korea to Georgia. In the same period of time, we only recruited 7. So unfortunately, if you don't have boots on the ground, if you're not competing, it's going to be kind of hard to win the business. So we need to show up. So we're opening up 5 new offices. We're opening up one in Korea, China. We've already got one in Italy and in Germany, and we're going to open another one in the Netherlands. Just a quick anecdote on Korea, since we brought up the Cubs. We have some Cardinals fans in the room. Anybody? Few? Okay. This will hurt a little bit. So I'll apologize in advance. Cardinals fans, Kentucky, it's not, I got to probably warn you that this will hurt a little bit. But so with the Cubs last year, the Cubs last year, we ended up recruiting a guy named John Lackey and Jason Hayward from the Cardinals. It's always great to get new talent, but when you can take them from your number one rival, it's even better. Well, I mentioned those 56 companies that moved from Korea or set up shop from Korea into Georgia. Turns out there was one lady on their team that recruited 52 of those 56 companies. She personally was the key person to bring those to Georgia. Well, 2 months ago, she decided to come work for us. So when we open our office, we've got their ace pitcher. So it's great. Yeah, it's great. A couple other things. So I have a lot of friends in business, being a businessman in Knoxville, and they'll always regularly complain to me that, well, Randy, you're spending all this time recruiting new business. What about us? Well, just so you know, 73% of all those jobs we just talked about were at businesses that were already here that expanded. I learned a while ago in my business, and I know there's a lot of businessmen in the room, your best return on investment is working with the customers you already have. So most of our effort is around working with the customers we already have and helping them to grow. And as you look at most of the announcements that we do, it's about businesses that are already here and want to continue to grow their business here. The third thing that we do, and it's probably one of my favorite things that I get to do, and I don't get to spend enough time on it because we've got an organization called Launch Tennessee that leads the entrepreneurial effort. But being an entrepreneur myself, my father's an entrepreneur. I have 2 sons that are now entrepreneurs, and my wife's an entrepreneur. So I'm kind of biased about entrepreneurs. But we put a lot of effort in trying to help start new businesses across the state. And I always say probably the most important thing that we do as a department, the most important thing I'll do in this job is helping some young or old person start a new business because while when you open that new business, you may not have the governor show up, there may not be a front page article about them getting started, but I firmly believe that 20, 30 years from now, the people that are really going to be shaping the destiny of our state will be those entrepreneurs that start their businesses today. So I'm just imagining when Bill the Friss opened their business in Nashville, or when Fred Smith flew that first airplane in Memphis, or Jim Haslam opened that first gas station. No governor showed up, but I can't imagine our state without leadership like that today. So anyway, we put a lot of effort on entrepreneurship. You won't read a lot about it, but it's something that I think is critical to our state's future, and also something that we put a lot of effort in. 2 other things really quickly that I think that's important to share. One is that it's critical for us in economic development to partner with our partners in education. Educational attainment is workforce development, which is economic development. As I talked about earlier, when businesses want to come to our state, the first thing they want to talk about is your talent pipeline. And if we can't prove that alignment and that ability to provide them the workers they need, we're not going to be successful as a state. And in this job, I go around the state and talk to folks all the time. You find students graduating from college with degrees that they can't get jobs in. At the exact same time, we're talking to employers and they can't find students with the skills they need. And how does that happen? Well, we're just not talking enough. And I really appreciate Dr. Smith's discussion earlier about how she's engaging with businesses. That is just so critical. As a business person, I can kind of point the finger at myself. I'm guilty of this. And many of us in business are. When we need, so I'll use an example. In my business, we make dog collars. These little, and I'd like to suggest to you that they're kind of more complicated than you might think, but there's these little application-specific integrated circuits in there. It takes 2 years to make them. They have to be fabricated out of a wafer, sliced, diced, programmed, and by the time they get to our dock, it takes 2 years. We had to forecast out our demands from our customers a year, so it's a 3-year supply chain just for this little part in a dog collar. Unarguably, the most valuable asset in our company is our people. And yet when we need a new person, we run an ad in Monster.com, and if our supplier doesn't deliver exactly what we want the day we ask for it, they're terrible. And we wouldn't do that to any other supplier, but our suppliers in education, we do that to all the time. So we can't expect them to be able to deliver what we need if we don't give them exact specifications and if we don't give them a forecast. And so one of the things we're championing with our business partners is to get engaged and not just be an advocate, not just be a cheerleader, but actually be an actual partner. Use education just like you do anybody else in your supply chain, because it is the most important supply chain that you have. One other thing I want to just mention about the community colleges, since we started off with Dr. Smith talking about this, is how critical they are to the state's future and to this Drive to 55. Many of you have heard about the governor's Drive to 55. That means when he set that goal in 2013, it was to go from 32.3% to 55% post-secondary attainment. Now that 55% wasn't just a number that we made up. By every forecast that we could find, every expert around the country, they said that by the year 2025, 55% of our workers had to have some type of post-secondary certificate or degree to meet the workforce demand. And we can, in this job now, I can feel it every day. People are needing more and more skills, welding and mechatronics. And so as the skills get more and more in demand, we've got to make that 55% is a reality. We've got a lot of work to get there. But that number is 400, it was from 32% to 55%, it was 494,000 certificates and degrees. But something to know, in that we actually mapped out exactly what that 494,000 looked like. And this was a forecast, so it's constantly changing. But at that point, 60% of those were certificates and degrees. And I hear this all the time, people saying, well, not everybody needs a college degree. We need welders and we need people with mechatronics skills. Those aren't unskilled jobs. Those are things you go to a technical college for or a community college for. So those are critical. One other thing I wanted to share with you that's really critical about that 55%, it's not always about, it can't just be about high school students going on to college. It's also got to be about adults. So here's some simple math. So we have 60,000 high school graduates roughly a year that graduate from Tennessee high schools. About 60% of them have been going to college. 20% or 40% didn't. So roughly 20,000 a year didn't go to college. So remember, we're going to go from 2013 to 2015. So imagine if those 20,000 that weren't going all went. Suddenly 100% of them went to college and 100% of them graduated. Today, only about 60% graduate in 6 years. But let's imagine 100% graduated. So 100% that weren't going go to college and 100% graduate. So 12 times 20,000 gives you 240,000 new certificates and degrees. So you see the problem. We can't even get to half of our goal with traditional age students. So we've got to reach out to adults. And we've got a program now called Reconnect that allows adults to go back to technical colleges free of charge. And maybe one day we'll be able to do a Tennessee Promise where even adults can go back to community college free of charge as well. And that's something that I think we can hope for and maybe in our future. One last thing I'll conclude with is while this is the most successful time in our state's history, it's not for everybody. Williamson County is on fire. You know that. Actually, there was a stat that I saw the other day. I met my counterpart in Utah, and he sent me a note and congratulated me that the second best performing, fastest growing county in the United States was Salt Lake County in Salt Lake City, Utah. He was number 2. And he congratulated me because Williamson County was number 1 in the entire country in economic growth last year. So congratulations to that. But at the exact same time, unfortunately, we have 21 of our counties in our state that are classified by the federal government as distressed. And the way they classify a county as being distressed, they look at all the counties in the entire United States and then put the bottom 10% in the entire United States in poverty, in unemployment, and in household income. And we unfortunately have 21 out of our 95 counties in the bottom 10% of the United States. So I know I've heard some of you going to different places around the world to do mission work, but these are our neighbors. I feel like we're only as rich as our poorest neighbor, and we've got some neighbors that are really struggling, not very far from here. So we've got to put every effort that we can around helping pull them up. And for lack of time, I'm not going to go into all the details, but we've got a lot of new initiatives that we're working on to help bring jobs to some of those rural communities. Our goal is, by the year 2025, to have 0 distressed counties. But I can tell you my team, my department, myself, our governor are convinced that we can do that a lot sooner than that, and we're determined and working nonstop to try to make that happen. So I mentioned the this again, pick on Kentucky once again, but thinking about this team concept. And when I got this job, I guess a year and a half ago, I was going through my budget and found out that we had $50 million in our war chest to try to recruit and support businesses. I thought, wow, as a dog fence salesman, we don't have $50 million in any of our budget. I thought, wow, this is great. We're going to be able to do incredible things. Then the next day, I was talking with my marketing director, and we were talking about his budget, and it turns out he had $200,000 in his budget. And I said, well, that's pretty good, don't you think? And he says, well, no, Commissioner, let me make sure you understand. The state of New York, their advertising budget is $100 million. So the state of New York's advertising budget is twice what our entire budget is. So I guess it was quickly realized that we don't win by outspending the other guys. We're never going to outspend Texas. We're never going to outspend New York. We're never going to outspend California. But we still have been able to win. And I have this theory about how we've been able to win. And it comes back to, the NCAA. And then when I was realizing this, the NCAA tournament was going on last year. And if you remember last year, Kentucky had this juggernaut. I mean, they were undefeated going into the tournament. I think 4 out of their 5 starters all got drafted in the very first round in the NBA draft. And so these guys were just incredible, one of the best teams of the century, undefeated. And they got to the Final Four, and of course, everybody, their odds-on favorite, of course, to sweep, and this best team ever. But they went up against this team called Wisconsin, and somehow Wisconsin beat them. And you think, well, how? And by the way, Wisconsin didn't have anybody that got drafted in the first round. And you think, well, how does that happen? I have this theory. The reason why Wisconsin won was simply because they played better together as a team. So when I think about Tennessee and I think about us winning in the past, how we're winning now and how we win in the future is because we are Team Tennessee and we work better together than any other state in the country. We've been doing that. We'll continue to do that in the future. Glad to be here with you guys as part of Team Tennessee, and look forward to some questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Boyd. We're glad to have you here today. And we asked in advance, I'm Mindy Tate, Executive Director for Franklin Amaro. We asked in advance for if you all had questions, and so that we could move this along. And so I'll ask the first one that was submitted. In which initiative do you see the most promise for helping the most students move into jobs?
So I think, I guess it'd be expected for me to say, and I'm going to stick with it, Tennessee Promise, being able to prepare students with the certificates and degrees they need for the jobs of the future is critical. But I think the most important part about the Tennessee Promise isn't that last 2 years, that last year, getting that certificate and degree. It's about the promise part of it. And I remember when I was working with the governor in 2013 as a special advisor on higher education. Quick side note, some of you are probably wondering this. I'll just answer this question for you. So you're thinking, okay, dog fence salesman, special advisor on higher education. How does that happen? So I'm usually fairly humble, but I'll say in this particular case, I was probably the only guy in the entire state that met the governor's 2 key criteria for the job. One was he wanted somebody that would be willing to work at least a year completely without pay. And the second was he wanted somebody that was totally unencumbered with knowledge of the subject. So that's how I got the job. I was willing to work for free, and I knew nothing about the subject. But I remember when we were talking about what we needed to do to get to the 55% in the very first couple of months. And he asked me then, what do you think our biggest barrier is to achieving our goal? And I remember answering something then that I think we both then since agreed that is the right answer. The biggest challenge that we have as a state is our culture and just our set of expectations. We have too low of expectations for ourselves and for our children. And the beauty about the Tennessee Promise, because it's an endowment and it's a promise that we can promise to kindergartners and their parents, children can start expecting more of themselves at an early age. And they can't wait till they get to the senior in high school to start preparing for college. They've got to start preparing as a kindergartner. So I'd say the Tennessee Promise is the most important thing because it gives us a new set of expectations for ourselves and our children.
Well, I also, just to piggyback that, I have a 19-year-old son that just graduated from Centennial, and he did all of the Tennessee Promise things by himself. I didn't have to hold his hand, along with his mentor, and he made the statement the other day. He said, I think I'm going to go ahead and do 4 years. Awesome. So it's great to get that seed planted, and this is before he even stepped foot on the campus in a real class situation, so I appreciate that as a parent. with so much focus placed on obtaining a college degree, what is going to happen to trade schools?
Okay, so back to the statement I made earlier. One of the, I think it was a good thing that also in 2013, one of our colleagues, Harry Brooks, suggested, Representative Harry Brooks from Knoxville suggested that, if you go to a barber college or a beauty school, they call it the School of, or College of Beauty, but our technical schools are just called centers. And so they felt like they were poorly branded, so they wanted to change their names to the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. But those are the places, those are our trade schools. But I think rightly they're called colleges, but it sometimes provides some confusion. People say, well, we don't need everybody to go to college. We need people to learn welding and we need to learn mechatronics. Well, those things you also learn at a college today. But the trade schools, if you want to call them that, are the key to our success to get to the 55%. 60% of all those certificates and degrees are going to be coming from our community colleges and our technical colleges. We can't get there without them.
Before I ask you a question, I need to put a plug in for everyone that hasn't voted, that early voting is occurring. It's very important for our county, our state, and the school board, and many other functions, so please take time out to go vote if you haven't.
Ends on Saturday. Early voting ends on Saturday. Matt Largen sent us a text while we were sitting down there, told us not to forget to remind people to go vote for the August election, but early voting ends Saturday.
Well, and I noticed too, it goes till 6 p.m. That's what the sign says. Where's Chad Gray? Is that correct? 6 p.m. Monday through Friday?
6 p.m.
See,
6
that's-
p.m., 8
so
a.m.
that
to
you
6
can go to
p.m.
work and
Monday
still-
through Friday at 5 different locations, 5 or 6 different locations. Chad Gray from the Williams County Election Commission is here today. And if you have a question about voting, Chad will answer it for you or get back to you today. So sorry, Rogers, we had to throw that plug in.
Well, that's all right. I'm just a guest up here. So my question to you is, how do you integrate tourism, economic development from Mountain Home to Memphis?
Yeah, so Commissioner Triplett and I are close friends. We work together regularly. When he first got the job, I told him that he's the commissioner for tourism, and I told him that in many states, and we've done some research, but in many states, tourism is part of economic development. So I don't really want the bureaucracy and have to integrate it, but it's part of economic development for a reason, because in many places, tourism is the key economic driver for the community. We talk about the rural task force that's working on trying to find ways out for some of those rural counties that are struggling. In many of them, tourism is the key driver. I was just in a meeting yesterday talking about Polk County. It's a great place for rafting. There's not much else that you can do in Polk County. It's a mountainous county with a river down the middle, but they've got 800 people employed in rafting. We need to do a better job of promoting tourism in those counties. Same thing for, say, Van Buren County with Fall Creek Falls. I mean, you wouldn't even want to put a factory there if you could, because you wouldn't want to spoil the beautiful geography that you have. But tourism can be a great driver for that area. So we work hand in glove with tourism. In fact, in part of the Rural Task Force initiative this year, we created $1 million pool to be able to award grants for some of our rural communities, up to $50,000 to develop some of their tourism assets. And right after I leave here, I'm flying to Carroll County with the governor. We're going to be giving it one of those $50,000 grants for a shooting range that they're developing there to help them promote that. But tourism is critical to economic development.
25,837 jobs was that.
But who's counting?
What I hear you call a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. What's your big, hairy, audacious goal for 2017, and how do you set those big goals?
Well, so first off, we're focused on 2016 right now, and this year's goal is 28,000. We're behind pace. I'm okay to admit, but I'm optimistic. We got some big things in the hopper, and I'm hopeful that we'll get there. But it's a stretch goal. So my theory on setting goals is that a great BHAG, a great goal, lives between the probable and the impossible. What I mean by that, if it's the probable is if you just do the things that you expect to do, that's probably where you'll end up. That's not a very exciting goal. but you don't want to set something that's just clearly impossible that you'll never get to. So when we're looking at what our BHAG should be, what our goal should be, it should live somewhere in that space. Something that's above probable, causes us to innovate, think creatively. We have to do something new and different and push ourselves to get there, but we believe that if we can do a few key things, we can still get there. The 28,000 is one of those. It's we don't have a clear path. We just wake up tomorrow morning and doing what we're doing today, we won't get there. So we've got to come up with something new to make that happen.
I'll ask one more then that was submitted. And I know that in your involvement with the Pond Creek, I believe it's Pond Creek Elementary?
Pond Gap.
Pond Gap
Yeah, thank you.
Elementary in East Tennessee. How can organizations like the Girl Scouts of Middle Tennessee, the Boys and Girls Club, organizations like Franklin Tomorrow, support Tennessee Achieves and Drive to 55? How can organizations support the efforts to close that education gap?
So I'm a Boy Scout, been a Boy Scout master for 7 years and den leader for 10 years prior to that. So I totally believe in everything that scouting and those organizations can do for kids. I think the direct answer would be mentors. These kids that are going from high school to college, 68%, by the way, are first-generation college goers. They're the first ones in their family's history to go. And all of them are matched with a volunteer mentor. There's usually one mentor for every 4 kids. Last year, we recruited 9,200 mentors across the state to match up with these kids. And we spent a lot of time talking about the free part of it, but the most important part is that mentor. Not only to provide that technical advice on, well, here's the date that you got to fill out your FAFSA, and here's how you register for college, but just to give that word of encouragement. I've also been a mentor now for 7 years, and time and again, I'll be working with a kid, and you can tell that nobody in his family is giving him any encouragement. And it's sad, but in a lot of families, if nobody's ever been to college, what they get when they get home is, well, that's not what we do, son. We don't go to college. You just need to go get a job. And by the way, you're just not smart enough. You can't do it. It's amazing the kind of negativity that many of them have. So if you're involved in those organizations, volunteer also to be a mentor. And maybe the kid that you're being a mentor for was somebody that was in your organization. But then besides that, just the morals and the discipline that you learn in scouting and some of these other activities is also a great influence on the kids, and it'll set them in the right direction.
Let's thank Commissioner Boyd for being our guest this morning.
Thank you.
This has been a great day. Rogers, did you mention the fair? Are we having a fair, Rogers? I think we're having a county fair.
A week from Friday, Diane would shoot me. There are
I was trying to save your
1,800
life.
volunteers getting ready to kick off the fair on August the 5th, so please put that on your calendar. And
What are the dates again? August 5th through the
August 5th for 9 solid days, every day, every night, it seems like.
Mardi Gras, right?
Mardi Gras. Barnyard Mardi Gras.
I'm trying to help you here, Rogers. I thought you probably had this down a little better than you're performing there for me today.
Well,
but
and
it's
Diane
okay.
would also want everybody to know that Elvis has switched nights.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
Elvis is her favorite part of the fair.
Well, yeah.
So it's Monday this year, which makes Gospel Night Wednesday. And I've got a couple of friends that are actually performing Gospel Night. Nicole Mullen, who is a Williamson County resident, will be there, as well as some of her friends that do an incredible group called Kettle Praise, and it's a cappella. And so Wednesday night is a new addition to the lineup, so it'll be really exciting.
And I would be amiss for you folks that, like myself, kind of been in the ag business for a few years in early life. One of the largest beef shows in the entire state of Tennessee is being held at the fair. The sheep and the lamb, and we have a sow. She should, if everything goes correct, nature holds up on it, should deliver some piglets. So bring your children, grandchildren out. It's always fun to see the chickens and the little piglets.
Yeah, it's a really fun part of the fair. I always go to that part of the fair for sure, yeah. Thank you for being here this morning. Franklin Tomorrow's next event is our monthly Frank Talks Lecture, which will be August 8th at 9 a.m. on the campus of Columbia State Community College. If you haven't had a chance to see it, it'll be a great way to see that. We thank Vanderbilt University for being our partner in presenting that. And Eric Stuckey, Franklin City Administrator, will have City Hall on wheels, and we'll be talking about plenty of times for questions and answers, but really focusing maybe on the Invest Franklin Capital Investment Program. We thank you for being here. Our next Breakfast with the Mayors is October 25th, and we'll be sending out emails on the Williamson County Education Interest Survey. Thank you for being here, and I hope you have a great day. Go out and do something good.
Thank you for having me.